Hey there, and welcome to another video of Harro in Europe. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the 3 most asked questions when traveling Europe by motorhome. Let's start with number 3. A commonly asked question is, can we get into all the major cities with our motorhome? So in Europe, there are multiple cities that have environmental zones, which means that with certain diesels, you're not allowed into or around the city. This is an issue. However, it's not that big that you want to choose your motorhome just based off the Euro regulations, because even though there are more and more cities that have environmental zones, they are usually cities that you don't want to get in with a motorhome anyway. And to get a motorhome, like I think right now, you need to have a motorhome of 2012 or 2013 to get in, which is pretty expensive, pretty new, and probably, depending on your budget of course, but probably you give in on quality just to get that Euro regulations right. And it's not that big of a deal, mainly because personally I always park outside of the city. Cities like Amsterdam or Paris or Antwerp, I don't even go into the city center with my RV, and I prefer to camp outside of the city and then take public transportation inside. And this is usually a lot easier as well. And besides that, even if you really want to get into that city, into the big messy crowd, then you can just buy a day pass. So there's a lot of cities, for example Antwerp, where you can buy a day pass to get into the city. Just type in on Google emission environmental zone day pass in Antwerp, and then you get an option to pay a certain amount, and then you can get in there for a day, and a day is usually enough. And there are likely ways to do it like for 2 days. I'm not sure, but to answer your question, yes, it is indeed a thing that there are environmental zones, but it's not that bad. There are not that many cities, and the cities that have an environmental zone are usually cities that you want to park outside of the city center anyway. Number 2, a frequently asked question is, can we go off-grid in our RV in Europe? What are the regulations? Are there certain laws? Is it even possible? Well, to answer that question, yes, it's very possible. Actually, I always travel off-grid. I seldom pay for campsites because I like to be at a quiet area. I like the nature, and there's just so many off-grid campsites in Europe. A good app to use is Park4Night, where you can actually find campsites, certain camping spots like parks for RVs, and even off-grid RV places. So this is a good app to use. And in terms of laws and regulations, there are a lot of laws, and not every country is the same. So it's good to read in the country you're going to. But overall, if you keep in mind, if you don't make a mess, if you keep it quiet, if you just behave, there's not a lot of places where they're actually going to fine you unless you're in a very big touristic area or inside of a city. There are also certain places where you may not want to free camp because of the crime rate in that area, and they are usually also the more touristic areas. But in most countries, think of Germany, Hungary, Romania, the whole of the Balkan, it's very easy to free camp. They won't bother you, and a lot of people and local people actually love that you do so. They are happy to say hi, they're happy to get into that conversation. And if you're ever at a spot where you're not entirely sure, personally, just go for it. Just behave, go for it. And if people do, if it is a place where you're not allowed to, what's the worst thing that can happen? They either send you away. In the worst case scenario, you get a fine, but it's usually not that big. So keep in mind the regulations of the certain country, but my advice would just be, use your common sense, behave yourself, and just go for it. Free camping. Number 1, the question I get the most about traveling Europe with a motorhome is about the size of the motorhome. Do you want small? Do you want big? And honestly, in my opinion, it doesn't even matter that much. There's a lot of people that say go as small as possible because of the little villages, the small roads in England, or the mountain passes. And there's also a lot of people that say Europe is so big and there's so many options, go with a large RV because you have the comfortability of being inside, storing all your stuff, taking the bikes in the back, and there's so many places to park. Both are pretty right. It really depends on your traveling style. If you really love the city, or you really love to go to the touristic areas and take that mountain passes or go off-grid through the villages in England, yes, a small camper van would be a comfortable way of traveling, probably a little bit more comfortable than a large RV. However, most of Europe doesn't have all these small roads. It's pretty easy. Personally, I travel in a 7.5 meter RV a lot, and I never get in a situation where I can't get out. I don't travel the motorway. I actually go off the beaten English. I don't travel all the time on the motorways. I like to get off the motorway. I do country passes everywhere, and it's not a very big issue. When I park somewhere, I don't have a lot of problems parking anywhere besides into the bigger cities. So it really depends on your travel style. I like the comfortability of having the bikes in the garage, to have that space that I use inside of the motorhome, and other people like to use that space outside and they don't really care. So it's really up to you. Small RV, big RV, camper van, car, it doesn't really matter. It depends on your own opinion, and with all the types of RVs you can get around in Europe. Just figure out your ideal style and go for that one. So that were the 3 questions that I get a lot from people that want to travel Europe by a motorhome. Do you want to travel Europe and are finding out how to buy an RV, do a buyback or rent something? Go online to www.europe-roadtrip.com and find out all the ways of how to explore Europe, buy an RV for a longer period of time. If you want to know anything, feel free to put down in the comments your question and I'll reply as soon as possible. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. And if you want to know more about emission zones, check out following video.